Start. Okay. Dear members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to this briefing on South African presidency of the Security Council and the program of work for the month of October. The program of work was adopted this morning with minor amendment. And I would like to brief you on it, whereafter I'll give an opportunity to ask any questions. Simple questions. Tough questions, go this side. It's going to be a very busy month, actually very busy, with numerous mandate meetings and scheduled mandate renewals. At the core of this program is matters related to Africa future, prominently throughout the month. You'll see throughout the month is Africa punctuated with African issues. Relating to our theme of South African presidency, continuing the legacy, working for a just and peaceful world. During the first week, on the 2nd of October, we'll have the first of our two elective meetings during the month, namely debate on peace and security in Africa, mobilizing the youth towards silencing the guns by 2020. We hope to adopt presidential statement in this regard during the course of the month. We'll receive the first briefing from the Special Envoy of Secretary General on the Great Lakes on Thursday, the 3rd October, while the PR of Poland will brief us on the work of the 1591 Sanctions Committee on Sudan. We'll also hopefully renew authorization for member states and regional organizations to inspect vessels involved in people smuggling off the coast of Libya, consequent to Resolution 2240 on the same day. On the second week, we'll kick off our second elective debate on the 7th of October on peace and security in Africa, the centrality of preventive diplomacy, conflict prevention, and resolution. The Secretary General will, among others, brief, and we hope to adopt another president's statement on this regard. You know, this is Secretary General's theme, preventive diplomacy. We'll further have a briefing and consultation on Mali, MINUSMA, the DRC, MONUSCO, and Colombia during the week. There will also be a troop contributing country meeting on Western Sahara, MINURSO, a briefing on Kosovo, UNMIK, which has now been changed to 31st of October, and consultation on Syrian chemical weapons. The third week will start on 15th October with the renewal of authorization for the joint border verification monitoring mechanism in terms of South Sudan border, UNISFA. On the same day, there will be a debate on United Nations mission for justice support in Haiti, MINUSJUST, which will officially convert to the special mission. You know, a day before we discuss, on the 14th, there will be lowering of the flag. And then we transit, hopefully, to the special political mission on the 15th in Haiti. During the remainder of the week, there will be a briefings and consultation on Yemen, on Darfur, UNAMID, and South Sudan, UNISFA. In terms of UNISFA, the mandate expires on 15th of November, and the discussions that will take place during our presidency is to make sure that we have a decision by the 15th of November. The lunch with Secretary General will take place on the 17th of October. The topics for the lunch will be announced shortly and will be informed. Lastly, there will be consultation on Western Sahara, MINURSO, the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, in the Israeli-occupied Golan and Lebanon because of Resolution 1559. Week 4 will kick off with the briefings and consultations on CAR, MINUSCA, as well as Syria humanitarian. During this week, the Council will also go on a mission to Addis Ababa for the joint annual consultation between the UN Security Council and the AU Peace and Security Council. The specific dates for the visit will be 23-24 with some small adjustment, during which the two councils will have a joint consultations on 1, South Sudan, 2, CAR, 3, situation in the Sahel, and Libya. This will be the theme of the consultations between the two councils. And on the 25th or earlier, that is where the reschedule may take place, 25th or earlier, we'll travel to Juba in South Sudan with the co-lead of United States, Kelly Craft, as penholder, and Jerry, South Africa, as the president of the Council for October. So we've been discussing with Kelly Craft how we deal with this. Already there's proposals of the agenda and the series of meetings that have been scheduled for this particular mission visit. This is a one-day visit, and member states of the Council will return to Addis Ababa the same evening, and the Council will depart Addis on the 26th to arrive in New York 27 to prepare for another hectic week. The 5th week will be our high week with our Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Lady Pando, chairing the number of meetings. So we have 5 weeks in 1 month. I don't know how does a month have 5 weeks, but South Africa has 5 weeks in this 1 month, packed with meetings because of sharing. Oh, this is an official briefing. This week includes the quarterly open debate on the Middle East, which will focus on the Israeli-Palestinian question the whole day. Minister Pando will also chair the ministerial-level open debate on women, peace and security, to which he has invited her counterpart, as well as a number of female foreign ministers from all over the world to come to this meeting for the Council. It is our intention to adopt a resolution which focuses mainly on the implementation of women, peace and security agenda during the open debate. And we are very grateful that during the high-level week, our Minister Dr. Pando, had discussion with her colleagues, and there is a resounding support for the adoption of this resolution. The final meeting during the last week will be a briefing on UN-AU cooperation, a briefing consultation on Burundi, and private meeting during which the President of the International Court of Justice will brief the Council. So the last day which we reserved is fully packed already, 31st. The Council is further scheduled to adopt 2 mandate renewals during this week, namely the mandate for the UN mission for referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, as well as the African Union, United Nations hybrid operation in Darfur, UNAMID. Last, we plan to hold a regular wrap-up sessions for the Council members on the last day of our presidency in the afternoon. To date, we have already totally planned 35 meetings. 2 editions this morning, so we're at 37. If we add the 2 days meeting in Addis, we're at 39 meetings. And Sudan, we have 40 meetings already planned before we start. So already have 40 meetings. As I say, it's going to be a very packed program. Now, we'd like to give the members of the press the chance to ask the simple questions they promised. Now, I think, please identify yourself, and Martinez and Kauhelo are ready to answer your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for this press conference, and on behalf of ANCA, we wish you the best of luck for the month ahead. My question is on China-US relations. China debuts missile believed capable to breach all existing anti-missile shields used by the United States and its allies. And on trade issues, another round of US tariffs on China should start on October 15. How the UN and the Security Council can mediate this escalation? Thank you.
Okay.
He's going to do one at a time.
One at a time. Oh, I'm told by the podium that is one at a time. Look, the Security Council normally don't discuss bilateral economic tariff issues. We left that to the member states to deal with. Because there is no agenda in the Security Council that relates to tariffs between member states. But we do hope that the two countries are capable to sit in the weight of Nelson Mandela and talk and resolve the issues. What we do hope is that they will not lead to the disruption of peace and security. So it's our hope that they will resolve the differences in that respect. Yes, ma'am.
Ambassador, thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim from the Daily Arabic Al-Arabi Al-Jadid newspaper. I want to go to the issue you talked about regarding peace and security in Africa and the preventive policy. Do you think regarding Egypt and the crackdown on many Egyptian demonstrators, activists, that the African Union and also the Security Council should play more a role of discussing this issue, and maybe in the spirit of preventive policy? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Part of why we chose this topic on the 7th of October, preventive diplomacy, is because if you look around the world, there are simmering tensions in so many sports. And we thought that before the implosion, there could be a very decisive national dialogues around these differences, because we know the differences in each country. We are aware of the differences in each country. Something from outside is internal. So we thought Secretary General and some leaders from Africa could share the experience in managing differences, in sitting down and having a dialogue to resolve the problems. And we know that the colleagues in Egypt will do the same. They will sit down, resolve the issues. Because what bothers the Council is that these issues are manageable, can be resolved. But maybe we need to encourage parties to sit and talk, to respond to the issues brought by communities, by the people with different views, but sit, talk, negotiate, and resolve the topics. That's why, having gone through the continent of Africa and elsewhere in the world, we thought that part of what we can contribute as South Africa is to learn on what we have done best in South Africa sit and talk and resolve their differences. So we hope that theme will encourage, mobilize people everywhere to sit and talk. Yes, Sherwin.
Thanks, Ambassador. Mr. President, Sherwin Briceby, South African Broadcasting. I understand that the A3 and your team in particular has been lobbying to get both the United States and the broader Security Council to back the funding up to 75% of AU-led peace operations on the African continent. Could you update us as to where this process finds itself right now? What are the remaining stumbling blocks that you're encountering, and will this be a resolution? I understand there's a draft text that's been that's somewhere. Will this be voted on during your presidency?
Thanks, Sherwin. You know, this is a standing AU decision which is 4 years old. And there's been a discussion in the last 4 years. Actually, there have been 2 resolutions adopted in that regard. The last one, 2017, step by step. But last year, unfortunately, we could not take the next step. So what has happened in the past 9 months, there's been a discussion between the A3 and the AU-PSC on how to push this resolution towards the resolution and decision by the Council. To date, we are still discussing these issues. There is a debate around 25% in the resolution that needs more clarity. We are saying we still have a month left. So part of the ongoing discussions, deliberations that we did also during the high level, there was a huge delegation, high-power delegation, commissioners from the AU was to discuss this and see how we move. Because until now, 14 members of the Council says, we'll support you. The U.S. says, let's engage. And we can see the movement from the U.S. on this resolution. So I think it is internal within the AU to tighten up the discussion on this question, because I think by and large, members of the Security Council are ready to action this resolution. So we hope that the ongoing discussion will bear fruits. You have the floor.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. Mr. President, I asked this question to Ambassador Nebenzia yesterday, but I'm going to ask it to you now today as you've taken over the presidency. Mr. Pedersen, the Special Envoy for Syria, yesterday announced an update on the Constitutional Committee. At the end of his speech, he urged unity from the Security Council. He said, I believe this moment is an opportunity for the Council to publicly support the process you've mandated. Is there any plan for a statement or resolution from the Security Council about the Syria political process, number one? And number two, you don't seem to have a political meeting on Syria that's normally a monthly meeting this month. Given there is still an ongoing military operation in Idlib, why have you decided not to have the political meeting this month?
First, on the first issue about the proposal of a resolution, there has been discussions before our presidency that maybe it's time to relook into a new draft resolution, a brief on humanitarian assistance. Now, that is with the pen holders, Kuwait, Germany, and Belgium. It's not the presidency. The presidency will wait for the pen holders and the parties concerned. What we did was to welcome this phenomenal development in Syria, that they've agreed now on the Constitutional Consent team, and we believe this is a very good gesture. So certain things can be done, because the environment is slightly more, I think, good for everybody to move on this. But the presidency will be guided by the pen holders and those parties concerned on this. So that is why. And as to why the monthly meeting, I think Martinez can answer this question.
Thank you very much. No, in terms of the meeting, we've consulted with the Special Envoy's office just to get a sense when to schedule during the month, and it was indicated to us that at this stage it's unclear when to brief again, because he's just briefed, and he briefed very late in the month. originally would have briefed early in September, and then it was moved to the 30th. So there's an indication that the next briefing may be in early November, but this morning during the discussions on the program of work, it was indicated that if there's a need, depending on how quickly things develop on the ground or whether there are major developments, there could be another meeting. So it's not ruling out a meeting, but at this stage, according to the wishes of the special envoy, we'll be looking. He requested to look at the beginning of November to look for another meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Best wishes for a successful presidency. My name is Ahmed Fati, American Television News. Earlier this morning, we had the President of General Assembly, Tijani Mohammed Bandi, and I asked him a specific question about peace and security, especially in the region of West Africa. There is now a spillover from Boko Haram and from Libya and from the Middle East. There is a new entity called Islamic State in West Africa Province. And there is a recent report from one of the intelligence observers that this group is now using high-tech equipment such as drones, which is preempting any attempts by the Nigerian armies into conducting military operations, as well as other technological breakthroughs that they had brought from those who were fighting in Libya and other spots in the Middle East. My question to the PGA and to you, in your capacity as President of the Council, would the two organs at some point reach to work jointly through a high-level debate, high-level meeting, a declaration regarding these new developments in West Africa that's impacting peace and security in an already impoverished part of the world?
Thanks very much for the question. Very timely question. Security Council is awake to the development in West Africa. In every month, the Council discusses this worrying, emerging development in West Africa. The consequence of the collapse of Libya and the flow of arms and fighters from Syria into the continent. And the question has been, what can we do to beef up the UN deployment in West Africa? What can we do to intervene and ensure that there is the respective capacities for the forces in West Africa in terms of equipment, deployment, training, mobility, to withstand and able to fight? We are all worried by the nature of this emerging threat. Mobile, high-tech, more vicious than before. Complicated by communal violence. If you look at the belt of West Africa, there's a lot of communal violence. These twin things have then said to the UN, you have to rethink the deployment, composition, and structure of peacekeeping. So we are now looking into how do we reconfigure the peacekeeping forces to respond to this new threats posed by what is happening. Of course, there is also a larger question of coordination of the work of the Security Council, peacekeeping, member states, in West Africa with ECOWAS, and see how we do, because you still have Chapter 7. So we'll then respond in line with Chapter 7, Chapters 8, Chapter 7, and see how we beefed up the regional capacities of ECOWAS to deal with this threat. I'm informed that there is a regular coordinating meeting of the presidents of ECOSOC, of the Council, of the GA, and the Secretary General. Maybe it is in that meeting that this matter will be raised. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. My name is Abdel Hamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I have two questions, one in your capacity as a representative of South Africa and one as the President of the Security Council. My question for you as the Ambassador of South Africa, the Palestinian people look up to the people in South Africa and its victory over apartheid. However, the Palestinians are going through more brutal apartheid and what advice you give them, especially that the international system had failed the Palestinians throughout those 70 years or more. The second question, would you take that step and take any member of the Security Council who agrees with you to go and visit the occupied Palestinian territory, especially Gaza, which is the largest human prison in history? Thank you.
Thanks very much. As South African, our position is known on this matter. We just said recently in the Council that the Council adopted 72 resolution since 3rd of April 1948. And none of these resolutions have been implemented. We sent to the Council, once you adopt the resolution, like in many other situations, let's follow through and implement. But we know the difficulty in the Council. So the South African view on the Palestinian question has not changed. At the same time, we've been appealing to the unity of Palestinians, that Fatah and Hamas have to unite, must close the ranks, and the neighboring countries have to unite and close the ranks. We still believe it is possible to have a two-state solution, because all of us, we also need a secured Israel, feeling safe and secured within their borders, as we discussed in 1948. Remember, 48, we decided to create two states. 47. Thank you very much. We decided to create two states. One state has been there for the last 72 years. Another state has not been born. So it's a blight on the Security Council, United Nations. But we believe that we should do everything possible to appeal to the Israelis, appeal to the Palestinians to sit down. We did as South Africa, 2003, welcome both to South Africa and says, look, like we have done, it is possible for you to sit and resolve your differences. Violence bequeath violence. It's going to go on and on and on. To the fourth generation. We'll reach 100 years in the next 25 years. It is something that the UN Security Council, we do hope that those who are putting some peace plans on the table will do so with the hope that could be a peace plan that both parties can look at, sit, discuss, and resolve. The time is long overdue to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian question. I think both deserve to live in peace and security, at least for their children. So we'll continue in South Africa to urge both parties to do the same. We have put a proposal in South Africa over and over to say those who are willing, we call it a mini mission, let's go to Israel and Palestine. Solidarity, but also to appeal to both parties to sit and talk. There is nothing unsurmountable in human history. There is nothing that can deter both parties to find. So we are prepared, but it seems there is no appetite. Now, I'm told by this guy that I need unanimity because I cannot just go as South Africa. So Martinez is breathing on my neck. Says, no, well, it's a wish, but Chief, you can't go there. They must agree. But I think we are ready for... now I have to go to my sisters, but let me give you and then I've been discriminating against... although she's worried that I talk about women, peace and security, but I overlooked. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations and wish you the very best. Mr. President, Pakistani Prime Minister I'm from Dawn newspaper of Pakistan. Pakistani Prime Minister on Friday gave a stirring speech about speaking particularly about the 8 million incarcerated Kashmiri Muslims. For the last 57 days, they've been incarcerated in their homes by 900,000 Indian armed forces. And he has said that those people should be freed and should be allowed to move around. That is not the only case, but why has the international community not spoken up about 9 million people being incarcerated in their homes? I mean, and no communication, and held incommunicado almost all the time. So can you please tell us why is the Security Council, will the Security Council move at all, at least to speak about it, not necessarily pass a resolution? Thank you.
The Security Council did discuss this matter of the situation in Jammu and Kashmir as a consequence of some measures taken by the Indian government. But unfortunately, the Council is divided on this question. That's why there was no outcome. Now, as a president, you can do whatever you do. At the end, the Security Council have to decide. In this meeting that took place last month, the Council was so divided that we could not even issue a paragraph statement. We could not even issue a paragraph to say we appeal for both parties to resolve the issue amicably, as per Simla Accord of 1978, when they met in Shimla. They agreed that this is a formula we're going to use, so we reminded them of their own undertaking on how to resolve this issue in Jammu and Kashmir. You see, I was the first ambassador of South Africa to India, and I used to go to Jammu and Kashmir. I used to go to Jammu all the time. I'm alive to the situation in Jammu. And we used to coordinate. In 1996, President Mandela visited India and discussed this matter to say, is it not possible for the leaders of these two great countries and intellect, capacity, to sit and discuss the issue, Jammu and Kashmir? But in the Council, I don't see that in the near future there will be a joint statement on Jammu and Kashmir. I'm aware, of course, of what the Prime Minister said. I'm aware of what the Indian response was. We can only hope that the situation will be resolved amicably for the both sides. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Tatira Junaira, and I'm a reporter from Zimbabwe. Since majority rule in South Africa in 1994, there's been a steady rise in xenophobic attacks, with Zimbabwean nationals living in that country being one of the most targeted groups. In recent memory, you can think of 2008, 2015, and more recently, what's happening right now. While there have been many promises and commitments to deal with this situation from South African authorities, it still seems to be recurring. So when you have your meeting on peace and security in Africa, will this issue feature prominently during those meetings?
Thank you very much. I think the Council members are united that the internal affairs in South Africa is not a threat to peace and security, so it won't feature. That is their own assessment, that it is not a threat to peace and security. Secondly, that I think the minister addressed it publicly at the General Assembly, what happened in South Africa, and the measures the government have taken to deal with these issues. Actually, Zimbabweans are the major beneficiaries of our migration policy. 425,000 Zimbabweans are given work permits in South Africa. No other people from Africa have that kind of privilege. None. We never had such a number of South Africans given work permit in Zimbabwe, but Zimbabwe has 425,000 permits. So I think you are a major beneficiary. But the minister discussed this issue, and the president went to Zimbabwe at the funeral of the late President Mugabe, and he also explained the matter. So I think Zimbabweans understand that it's not a policy of government, and it's not a national policy. It's a few group of people. And that South Africans are not xenophobic by nature. They live over 100 years with neighbors from Malawi, Tanzania, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, all over. People have been migrating to South Africa for over 100 years, and there's never been a problem. So we'll deal with these issues, and hopefully the Africans can close ranks and move forward. My sister, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. First, did I miss something? I don't see any mention at all of Libya or North Korea on this, the DPRK on this list. And I wondered, looking back on this last high-level week, what you thought was accomplished during this week. There were a lot of stories about a lot of conflicts and certainly on climate change, but the theme of the high-level debate was really focused on the SDGs and fighting poverty, etc. So what's your feeling coming out of the other side?
Well, let me start with this one, because I think that one is for the PGA. I'm sure you talk with the PGA about it, and he gave his own.
But it's also
assessment.
up to it's also up to individual countries and what you saw.
So I'm sure the PGA have adequately addressed the matter. From our side, we think it was a well thought out program. 5 summits addressing the issues of people. This was a people-centered summit. How does climate change affect ordinary people everywhere? Health issue, universal health coverage. How do we lift up millions of people and make sure that they can access health services? How do we solidarity with the SIDS countries, small island development states? Because some of them, the peril of climate change is real. How do we then mobilize the international community to think about those people, lonely people in islands, small countries, facing the danger and overwhelming by. So I think these 5 summits by General Assembly Secretary General were thought out, but also as a bridgehead, as a base towards the 75th anniversary of United Nations. Because we need to have something to celebrate. We need to work so hard to say this 75th anniversary is worth celebrating. So I think we should really give due to those who thought through these 5 summits, complemented by over 100 side events, all moving to one direction to address the concerns of ordinary people. At least for the first time, we could hear, listen to our children, to the youth, to women, to everybody who otherwise doesn't have a platform to address the leaders at the United Nations. So I think it was a very good thing. DPRK, Martinez, why is it not here?
Thank you, Ambassador. No, in terms of the schedule and as was explained, most of what's on the schedule are mandated events. So it's either reporting mandates or renewal mandates. So the reason for it not being there is because it's not in the cycle of October to appear on the council. The only thing that we have on Libya is the adoption of 2240 on Thursday. But that's the basic explanation. Obviously, when something does happen or there's a crisis, the whole situation changes, but there are no mandated events for this month.
And further, on the 24th, there is a very intense UN Security Council and AU Peace and Security Council discussion on Libya in Addis Ababa. Very, very intense. And part of this intense is because we have to make sure that we emerge with a particular roadmap, a coordinated approach to Libya. Because so far, the Africans feel that they are sidelined. So that's why we put in the agenda of the Joint Council discussion the issue of Libya. We believe that both councils should discuss it, more so that it impact on the sub-Saharan Africa. So the one Libya question alone going forward. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Since Edie brought up the question of DPRK, and since in 1950 the Security Council was manipulated or hoodwinked into participating in an attack on Korea, which decimated the entire country. It's still at war. No peace treaty was ever signed. Is there going to be any discussion of the Security Council working toward getting a peace treaty? It's still in a state of war, and the sanctions that are imposed on North Korea, even Ambassador Nebenzia agreed, were failing, were imposing terrible humanitarian hardship on the people. And in many cases, UN humanitarian programs are being crippled by those very sanctions. What can be done? What can the Security Council do? This is really a huge shame for the Security Council not to move toward a peace treaty and the lifting of the sanctions.
No, I think we really appreciate your concern. But as Martinez was saying, we hope the Council in November will discuss North Korea. But as South Africans, we believe that time has come for the Koreas, North and South, bilaterally to resolve the issues. We all know the issues. But also that North Korea, South Korea should resolve the issues with Japan. That Japan should resolve the issues with China. It's a triangular of mistrust in that region. So we believe that we can move all these parts simultaneously. Because the Japanese feels that North Koreans owe them something. Japan has military alliance with the US. South Korea feels that North Korea is neutralizing, weaponizing, and then feel unsafe. It has American bases there. So South Africa had been appealing that as we push, urge for the North, and actually appreciate the resurgent North Korea, South Korea rapprochement and discussion, can build on by hooking in other countries. The role played by China is very important. Russia is very important. US is very, very important. What we need is a comprehensive approach to the region of North Korea. We do hope that as we appeal to preventive diplomacy, to dialogue, that the Koreas can sit and talk without waiting for somebody from outside to solve these issues. Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good luck this month. Margaret Bashir with Voice of America. My question's on Sudan, Ambassador. Last week, the Prime Minister, Hamdok, at the high-level event, called for the immediate lifting of sanctions. So did the Secretary General and the chairperson of the African Union Commission. You're going to discuss Sudan sanctions on Thursday. Will South Africa or South Africa, in conjunction with its African counterparts on the Council, call for an easing or lifting of sanctions? Do you believe it's time to lift 1591?
Yes, madam. You summarized so well. I think you can tell other council members. I think we believe with this rapprochement, with these changes, we need to give positive momentum to Sudan, take it out of the countries which are supposed to be financing terrorism, and lift sanctions so that we can then assist them to go. Yes, ma'am.
Will you be doing anything Thursday towards that?
Well, I hope Caujelo Martinez will prepare a statement for me to say something in that direction. Please talk with Martinez after the meeting. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gabriela Pinasco from Vistazo Magazine in Ecuador. Are you planning to discuss on this next term the situation and the crisis about Venezuela regarding this commission that the Human Rights Commission is creating to analyze, to investigate the extrajudicial killings in Venezuela?
PC? Why are calling? Because they went to, it was DPR. They went to Colombia. I didn't go there, but...
Well, thank you, Ambassador. No, there are no plans at this stage to discuss that, and while it's under consideration also by the Human Rights Council, it would be prudent for it to deal with the matter there, and it has not been raised at this stage, and the hope has been expressed that the current efforts that are underway behind the scenes, that be supported and that be successful. So hoping that will bear some fruit.
Yes, ma'am. I'm favoring now. Yes.
Thank you, Linda Fasulo. I represent NPR here. My question has to do with Iran and nonproliferation. We know that the Security Council endorsed the Iran deal. We know that obviously there are differences in terms of, for example, the U.S. having withdrawn and embracing its own policies. On the other hand, Iran is believed not to be cooperating with the terms of the Iran deal either. I was wondering if there's any push within the Council to take up the Iran deal since, of course, the Council endorsed the plan.
Thank you very much. I'll go to the Bulldog. Martinez, is there issue on Iran on the program? He does the program.
That's not really true. No, not at this stage. But I think in past meetings, it has been made clear that there's wide support that actually the JCPOA should continue. So there was quite strong views on that. But no, it's not been scheduled for now. It's not one of the mandated events.
But we appealed to Iran to, as much as possible, implement the agreement under JCPOA. Two wrongs don't make right. So we hope that they will go. But understandably, it's choking running economy. One side is keeping the deal, the other side is not keeping the deal. So I think it's understandable that let's all keep the promise made. Promise made, we keep it. But as Martinez was saying, we hope that at some stage there could be some agreement on what do we do. Yes, sir. On the right-hand side. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nabil Abisab, Al-Arabi TV. What do you think about the negotiations between Ethiopia and Egypt on Renaissance Dam? Do you believe that this is an opportunity for preventive diplomacy maybe from the Council? Or how serious you think that this is a threat maybe to regional peace and security? Thank you.
Well, thanks very much. You know, we have been saying to the countries that are being washed by the Nile, from South Sudan, Ethiopia, that the best thing to do in order to discuss how you share this resource is to sit down and see how people along the Nile can benefit economic-wise, farmers, citizens. That here we need a common cause. It cannot be only me, only you. So we have encouraged these discussions, which has been going on for years now, that because we need the Nile water, all of us, downstream, upstream. We need it equally. We need to provide people with a livelihood, access to that water, energy, etc., etc. So we hope that the Ethiopia-Egypt discussions can move towards fruition. We know that it's a bit of a bump on the way, but we do hope that the two countries have the capacity to resolve this issue. If it is done, it will create a good wave and environment on the countries around the Nile. Yes, sir, next to you.
Yes, my name is Sixtus Mbom. I'm from Cameroon. And I just want to find out why we don't have the conflicts in Cameroon on the program, given that we have a conflict between two parties. We have separatists on one side and the government on the other side. So as we speak, there's a dialogue going on in our capital city without the separatists, and they are vowing to continue arming themselves to fight further for what they call their independence or restoration of their independence. So I'm just wondering, we have an ongoing war, thousands have been killed, about 800,000 children have not been to school, yet we don't have that on the agenda of the Security Council. I'm just wondering, do you have plans to include it in future, or what's happening?
Your sister will deal with the question. You know, she knows West Africa than I do.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much for your question. You're all aware that Cameroon is not an agenda item of the Security Council, so that's why you don't see Cameroon being tabled in the program of work for this month. However, as we have said also in the past, that we welcome the national dialogue announcement that has been made by the authorities in Cameroon. It started yesterday and it will proceed through this week. And the African Union as well has also welcomed this development. This is something that we want to encourage. And yes, you're quite right that all the parties should be part of the process and it should be as inclusive as possible. That is what we are trying to encourage.
We also want to encourage the other issues. You know, there is an issue about devolution of power, the language. So they should move simultaneously. You know, the Swiss recommendations. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Joseph Klein, Canada Free Press. I'd like to go back to Iran for a moment. Was there any discussion during the consultations today or otherwise amongst the council members about investigating the circumstances of the attack on the Saudi Arabian oil facilities? It's been reported that the UK and France agree with the US assessment that Iran had a primary role in it. I believe there are some UN resources being devoted to look at the circumstances, but is there any discussion about the Security Council formally endorsing a investigation of the circumstances? Thank you.
No, there was no discussion this morning. Yes.
Philippe Rater, Agence France Presse. Burundi asked yesterday not to be put on the agenda, and you plan a meeting on Burundi this month. Why?
The Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and Rosemary DiCarlo, USG, met Mr. Kafando, Deputy Representative, who requested, he's the one who requested to brief the Council, because he has met President Museveni and other leaders. In the last 4 months, he was not ready to brief the Council. But now he has agreed. He has requested to brief the Council. So, as the President, one of the requests from the Secretariat, as a request of the envoy, you could not say yes, no. So we then ask for the briefing on the 30th. So you're going to be briefing. I think we have given everyone the chance to ask the question. And thank you so much. We'll keep on updating about the developments. Thanks very much. So the meeting is adjourned.